Hello, my dear curious and studious students of surgery. Myself, Dr. Mahesh Chaudhary. I am warm welcoming you in my surgery lecture series. This surgery lecture series contains entire surgery with anesthesia, with radiology, with orthopedic. So stay tuned with us. Let's start our surgery lecture series. Welcome, dear students, in my surgery lecture number 30, that is the Crohn's disease. We will learn in this lecture Crohn's disease, ischemic colitis, amoebiasis, actinomycosis, diverticular disease of the colon, large intestine, diverticulosis of coli. All these points are covered in this lecture. Now start with the Crohn's disease. Besides the terminal ileitis, which Crohn described in 1932, this disease involves the large bowel as well. About 30% to 60%, according to various reports, of cases of Crohn's colitis are associated with disease of the ileum also. Now the pathology, unlike ulcerative colitis, total involvement of colon is less frequent in this disease. In case of partial involvement, this disease involves right colon more often. Rectal involvement is seen in only 50% of cases, and in ulcerative colitis, rectal involvement is 95%. Now the clinical features. The common symptoms of large bowel Crohn's disease are diarrhea, loss of weight, and abdominal pain. Bloody stool is rarely seen in Crohn's disease, colitis. On examination, external and internal fistula may be detected. Perianal abscesses, fistula and fissure in ano are quite common in Crohn's disease. Dear students, you can watch this animated image on your screen. That is the image of the Crohn's disease. You can see the normal intestine there, and the Crohn's disease large intestine is also there, which shows the narrowing of the lumen of the colon, thickened wall, and fat wrapping to secure that colon. Next image taken by the endoscopically, there is a thickening of the inner layer also, and these second images are from the CT abdomen. Here is another animated image showing the large intestine colon. The red area shows the Crohn's disease, and in the second image, red image showing the colitis ulcerosa. Now the special investigation, endoscopy, sigmoidoscopy, rectal palpation reveal palpable lumpy thickening of rectal wall with narrowing. Endoscopy reveals the mucosa to be more edematous and less granular with small petechiae and scattered small ulcers. Patches of normal mucosa may be seen. Radiology, barium enema, X-ray reveal partial obliteration of the haustration pattern. The involved portion shows rigid wall with stenotic lumen. Fissure may be seen from the lumen into the bowel wall due to deep ulceration. Nodularity of the mucosa due to edema may be seen, and if these nodules are separated by linear ulcers, that is the cobblestone appearance is produced. Now the treatment, medical treatment is corticosteroids are less effective in Crohn's disease, and azithromycin may be tried in post-operative patients to prevent recurrence. Now the surgical treatment with total involvement of colon including rectum, total proctocolectomy and permanent ileostomy should be the treatment of choice and operation of choice in this condition. Total colectomy and ileoproctostomy is justified. Recurrence rate is 50%. Segmental colonic involvement, segmental recession with primary anastomosis. Next point is ischemic colitis. There are three varieties of ischemic colitis. One is transient ischemic colitis, second is the stricture ischemic colitis, and third is the gangrenous ischemic colitis. The splenic flexure is the most vulnerable segment, as this is the junction of the supply of the superior mesenteric and inferior mesenteric arteries, and in this area marginal artery of the Dumont is at its greatest distance from the bowel wall. But ischemic colitis can affect any segment of the colon. Now the clinical features of the ischemic colitis are, majority of patients are very old and it is rarely seen below the age of 45 years. Onset is usually acute with mild to moderate abdominal cramp, followed by passage of the blood per rectum. Bacterial peritonitis and septic shock develop. Special investigations like radiography, straight X-ray abdomen is often confirmatory. Barium enema is contraindicated in gangrenous ischemic colitis. Barium enema is diagnostic in stricturing colitis. Marginal thumb printing may be seen due to submucosal hemorrhage and anal pericolic fat inflammation. Dear students, you can see a good picture, animated picture of the blood supply of the large intestine. You can see there is a superior mesenteric artery, inferior mesenteric artery, aorta, the branches, circulatory branches of in the mesentery clearly seen, This is the another animated images showing the arterial blood supply to the large bowel by the superior and inferior mesenteric artery, and the colored area showing there is a ischemia. This is the good picture of the ischemic colitis, ischemia of the loop of the intestine, which becomes the bluish and dark in color. The blood supply is hampered. This is the another picture of the necrosis or ischemic segment of the small intestine. You can see this is the resected part, ischemic part of the intestine. Now the next investigations of the ischemic colitis, in the ischemic colitis, are endoscopy. Colonoscopy is helpful. Angiography will reveal the site of the block as the cause of ischemia. Now the treatment in transient colitis, no specific therapy is necessary, and in there is a stricturing colitis, conservative therapy is indicated. If colon becomes strictured, the segment should be resected with primary anastomosis. In gangrenous ischemic colitis, emergency operations should be performed. Involved segment is resected and primary anastomosis should be done. Now the next point in this lecture is amoebiasis. This is an infective disease due to the infestation with Entamoeba histolytica. Pathogenesis of this disease is the transmission of the Entamoeba histolytica is effected through its incysted stage, and infection occurs through the ingestion of this cyst. In man, the incubation period varies a great deal, but it is generally 4 to 5 days. Entamoeba histolytica passes through 3 stages. One is the trophozoite, that is the growing stage, pre-cystic stage, and third is the cystic stage. After ingestion of cyst through contaminated food or drink, the cyst passes through the stomach into the small intestine. The cyst wall is resistant to the action of the gastric juice, but is digested by the action of the trypsin in the intestine. Encystation occurs in the lower part of the ileum, and each cyst liberates a single amoeba with 4 nuclei. Tetranucleate amoeba, which divides and form 8 trophites by the division of 4 nuclei, so there is hardly any chance of affection of GI tract above ileocecal valve. Cecum is the first part to be affected. The trophozoite phase is responsible for producing the characteristic lesion in amoebiasis. Here is a cycle, animated image showing the cycle of the Entamoeba histolytica, how it goes in the body by consumption of the contaminated food and by the fecal matter of the infected person. Again it produces the cyst and trophozoites, and again it transferred to the another person. This is the picture of amoeba. Now the pathology: primary and intestinal lesions. Trophozoites enter through the crypts of lubricant and penetrate directly through the columnar epithelium by their amoeboid activities and by dissolving intestinal epithelial cells with a proteolytic ferment. They secrete gradually burrow into the submucous coat and form colonies. There, with destruction of tissues around the colonies, ulcer develops. Ulcers are usually round and oval and becomes transverse when there is ulcer coalescence. Now the complications of this amoebiasis are local peritonitis, hemorrhage, perforation and general peritonitis, pericecal or periocolic abscess, fibrous stricture, intestinal obstruction, amoeboma, sloughing and gangrene of the large gut. Now the clinical features of the amoebiasis are: one, acute amoebic dysentery, and second is the chronic amoebic dysentery. In acute amoebic dysentery, rare and due to massive contamination of water supply, high fever, abdomen, cramps and profuse bloody diarrhea and tenesmus. Serological test for Entamoeba histolytica antibodies may be used to confirm the diagnosis. Second, chronic amoebic dysentery. Common form of the disease. Onset is gradual, intermittent diarrhea with 2 to 4 foul-smelling stools daily, vague abdominal pain, stool may contain blood. Now the treatment of the amoebiasis are: metronidazole 750 mg TDS for 7 days in acute amoebic dysentery, and dihydroxyquine 650 mg TDS for 20 days in acute amoebic dysentery. Optic neuritis is one of the dreaded complications of dihydroxyquinine. So, very cautiously prescribe this medicine. Amoebic abscess of liver is the most common complication of amoebic colitis. May rupture into pleura, pericardium or peritoneum. Now the next point of this lecture is actinomycosis. Actinomycosis is an uncommon suppurative infection produced by the anaerobic fungus Actinomyces israeli. These reside in the mouth and invade whenever there is a breach in the mucous membrane. The cervicofacial area is the most commonly involved site, followed by the thoracic abdominal involvement. Cecum is the most frequently involved site of actinomycosis. An indurated pericecal mass sometimes develop. Sulfur granules may be seen in the pus. Treatment is actinomyces are usually sensitive to penicillin, tetracycline, lincomycin and other drugs. A prolonged intensive course of penicillin, that is the 10 mega units daily, is quite effective. Dear students, here is a good picture of cervicofacial actinomycosis. This is the most common and recognized presentation of the disease of actinomycosis. Species are commonly present in high concentration in tonsillar crypts and gingiodental cervicals. Many patients have a history of poor dentition, oral surgery and dental procedures or trauma to the oral cavity. Chronic tonsillitis, mastocytitis and otitis are also important risk factors for actinomycosis. This is the another images of the actinomycosis clearly seen. This is the third image which showing the actinomycosis. This is the tonsillar actinomycosis in the oral cavity clearly seen. Now the next point of this lecture is the diverticular disease. There are two types of diverticula of the colon are recognized. One is a multiple false diverticula of the left colon, which is known as the diverticulosis, and the rare true single diverticulum of the cecum or ascending colon. Here is no big description regarding this disease. Now the next point is the diverticulosis of the coli, etiology and pathogenesis. Acquired herniation of mucosa and submucosa through the circular muscle layer at the point where blood vessel penetrates the colonic wall. Dear students, you can see the image on your screen from the endoscopy. There is a diverticular disease of the colon. Diverticulum of the colon is clearly seen on the image. This is the next animated image where is a giant diverticulum is seen. The rectum, anus and segmental colon, there is a multiple diverticuli are seen. The mechanism how these diverticula are produced is the abnormal contraction rings formed in the sigmoid colon. Contraction of these closed segments force the mucosa to herniate through the weakest spot in the muscles. Chronic constipation with age and obesity and inherited of bowel musculature is often demonstrable in diverticular disease. Diet. Next point is the diet. A low residue diet definitely predisposes this condition. Sigmoid colon is main site involved. Sigmoid colon plus descending colon involved in 80% of cases. Sigmoid colon plus other colonic sites are involved in 95%. Rectum and ascending colon involved in 4% each cases. This is an asymptomatic condition. Main two complications are bleeding and inflammation, that is the diverticulitis. Dear students, there are some videos showing the diverticular diseases on YouTube. You can watch it. Here is the end of our surgery lecture number 30, that is the Crohn disease. Thank you.